Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome, Bruchim Habayim. Welcome to everyone in the sanctuary, on Zoom, new folks, familiar folks, returning folks. We're going to begin in the smaller red books under your seats, the Siddur, Kol and Shema under your seat, on page 141. The singing of Ma Tovu as we create our temporary community together in this space. Page 141. Ma tovu alecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu alecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Vani berov chasecha avo veitecha eshtacha belecha kochecha. Shabbat Shalom and welcome again. This Shabbat Hagadol, the Shabbat before Pesach, Shabbat of spring in the middle of Nisan. It's a tradition at this time of year, especially in Nisan as we approach Pesach, to sing the Song of Songs, and we are going to sing a song on page 19, all the way in the beginning of your Siddur, page 19. The songs are love poems attributed to Shlomo, but they're really also interpreted as being between the divine presence and the people of Israel, or divine presence and humanity. And so in the song Dodi Li, also a favorite that is sung at weddings as well, as we talk about the love for each other and betrothal and one's relationship to the other. Page 19, Dodi Li. Shani We continue with words of praise and psalms as we approach Psalm 136 on page 201, back into our Shacharit service. Increasing our joy as we started the month of Nisan last Shabbat. We have Shabbat Hagadol, and we raise our elements of gladness and joy as we approach the holiday of Pesach next week. Again, page 201. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasdo. Hodu l'Adonai ha'Elohim, ki le'olam chasdo. Hodu l'Adonai ha'Adonim, ki le'olam chasdo. Le'yosei niflot gedolot levado. We move forward to the final psalm, Psalm 150, page 231. We call out with all of our instruments, all of the strings and the woodwinds and the sound of our voices and the sound of our hands clapping together, our feet tapping on the floor. Page 231, Psalm 150.
Hallelujah.
Now that we've warmed up our spirits and our bodies and our voices, I invite everyone to turn to page 247 as we rise for Baruchu. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Ruach HaOlam Yotzer Or Uvorei Choshech Osei Shalom Uvarei et HaKol. Please be seated. We continue on the following page. Hakol Yoducha at the top, transliterated on the bottom, as well as hopefully in the chat for you folks at home. There's a reading on page 232. It's actually written as an interpretive version of Nishmat Kol Chai, which is really from earlier, written by Marge Piercy, but really speaks to these elements of creation, which is where we are in Yotzer. And so I want to share some of these paragraphs with you. Page 232 if you want to follow along, and otherwise you can just sit and listen. When the night slides under with the last dimming star, and the red sky lightens between the trees, and the heron glides, tipping heavy wings in the river, when crows stir and cry out their harsh joy, and swift creatures of the night run toward their burrows, and the deer raises her head and sniffs the freshening air, and the shadows grow more distinct and then shorten. Then we rise into the day, still clean as new snow. The cat washes its paw and greets the day with gratitude. Leviathan salutes, breaching with a column of steam. The hawk, turning in the sky, cries out a prayer like a knife. We must wonder at the sky now, thin as a speckled eggshell, that now piles up its boulders of storm to crash down, that now hangs a furry gray belly into the street. Every day we find a new sky and a new earth with which we are trusted like a perfect toy. We are given the salty river of our blood winding through us to remember the sea and our kindred under the waves, the hot pulsing that knocks in our throats to consider our cousins in the grass and the trees, all bright, scattered rivulets of life. We are given the wind within us, the breath to shape into words that steal time, that touch like hands and pierce like bullets, that waken truth and deceit, sorrow and pity and joy, that waste precious air in complaints, in lies, in floating traps for power in the dirty air. Yet holy breath still stretches our lungs to sing. We'll conclude Or Chadash, page 269, the final meditation on the Yotzer creation prayer. Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir v'nizkechu lanu b'mihira leoro Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot. Ahava Rabbah, page 273. We take a moment to daven or read or meditate to ourselves before we have a moment for the Shema. Ahava Rabbah Avtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chel Magidu Avodim Adonai Avinu Magenu Avinu 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 Avarachaman Amrachem Amrachem Avinu 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 Maskil Lishma V'Lamon Lishma Liber Tamad V'Nefo. Top of page 275, V'harinenu, enlighten our eyes with your Torah. V'harinenu b'toratecha, v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha, v'yachei levavenu, le'ahava u'yirat shemecha, v'harinenu b'toratecha, v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha, v'yachei levavenu, le'ahava u'yirat shemecha, v'lo nevosh, v'lo nikalem, v'lo nikashel, le'olam ha'ed, ki v'shem kodshecha, hagadol v'hanora batachnu, nagila v'nitzmecha, nagila v'nitzmecha b'shuatecha. V'havienu l'shalom, be'arbat kanfot haaretz, v'tolichenu kumemiut le'artzenu, v'tolichenu kumemiut le'artzenu. Ki el poel Yeshuotata, v'keraftanu l'shimcha hagadol sela be'emet, v'hodot lecha yuchedcha be'yahava. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Page 277. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha, ve'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. We take a moment to daven the second paragraph of the Shema to yourselves, either on 279 or 283, or the corresponding English translation, and then after a moment we'll come back together for the final paragraph. Page 285. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael ve'amarta aleihem, ve'asu lahem tzitzit, al kanfei vigdeihem ledorotam, v'natenu al tzitzit hakanaf petil techelet, והיה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו, אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם emet. The holiday of Pesach includes the moment when, the ultimate moment when the Israelites are freed from slavery in Egypt, and the sea is parted, and they're able to go through into freedom, to the new land, to a new life. And it's really in this part of the story, in this moment in the morning when we get to this prayer, we have a chance to think about all the wonderful things in our lives, no matter what challenges we're dealing with, what ailments or sicknesses. There are good things in our lives. There are things that are working, that are coming together. Sometimes it's hard to recognize them. Sometimes they're really hard to bring out, to bring to the focus of our intention when we are holding a lot. And sometimes we're just living in a moment of gratitude and joy. And so wherever you are sitting this morning, imagine you've come through those waters. You've come through a place of narrowness, of Mitzrayim, and bring whatever joy you can muster to the singing of Mi Chamocha. This should be familiar to a lot of you and perhaps new to some of you, because I see we have a number of guests here. So I want to teach you, there is some clapping involved, so I hope you can indulge me. So it goes like this. La 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 la. Can you try that with me? La 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 la. All right, you got it. You can add other clapping too. I encourage that, or tapping, or you can just sit and listen if that's what is in your bones this morning. If I actually told you the page 291. Tzur Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Ufedechinu mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael, Go aleinu, Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. In a moment, we'll begin the Amidah, the central part of our prayer this morning, on page 295. It's our tradition to daven the first three blessings out loud together through the Kedusha, and after that you can use the remaining time to go through the rest of the traditional liturgy or simply sit with the prayer that's most appropriate in your heart this morning. Again, page 295. La 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 Adonai. La 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 Sfatai Tiftach. La 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 Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. La 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 Adonai. La 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 Sfatai Tiftach. La 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 Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Rav le'Hoshia, Mashiv haruach, U'morid hagashem, Mechakel chayim bechesed, Mechayei kol chai berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayim emunato, Lishenei afar, Michal mocha bal gevorot, Umidom melach, Melech memit umechaya, Umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atah l'hachayot kol chai, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei kol chai. Page 303. Mekadesh et shimcha ba'olam keshem shemakdishim oto bishmei marom kakatuv ayod neviecha v'karazeh ve'yamar kadosh 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 Adonai Tzevaot Meloch kol haaretz kevodo. Az b'kol rosh gadol adir v'chazak mashmi'im kol v'nasim li'umat rafim li'umatam Baruch yomeru, Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo. ממקומך מלכינו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, וקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים בינינו תירנה תירנה מלכותך ועדו נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל המלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך, אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We conclude with a prayer for peace on page 323, transliterated in the chat. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimromav. Yes. we've reached our Torah service. So we are going to take the Torah, open the Ark first, and then take the Torah out. We're on page 385. I invite up our Ark openers. I invite everyone to please rise. And we have, is one of you carrying the Torah? You're carrying, okay, great. Yeah. Page 385, and then in the chat for you folks at home. Vayhi bin Saharon vayomeh Moshe Adonai veyafutzu oivecha veyanusu besanecha mipanecha ki mitzion teitzei Torah ulfor Adonai mirushalayim Baruch shenatan Torah le'avo Yisrael b'kedushata ki mitzion teitzei Torah ulfor Adonai mirushalayim Baruch shenatan Torah le'avo Yisrael b'kedushata. Page 393, we say responsively, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadolul Adonai iti, unrobim Hashem yachdav. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'yishtachkavu lehar kosho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'yishtachkavu lehar kosho. seated. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are in Parashat Mitzorah, in the middle of the book of Leviticus. One of the, I say sarcastically, most exciting parashas in the Torah, really dealing with a lot of physical ailments, and so the rabbinic tradition, and I think us as moderns, try to reinterpret a lot of what is covered in this particular Torah portion. So we're going to chant a little bit, and then if we have some time later on, I'm going to cover a little bit section after what we read. But we have 5 aliyot today. The reading, if you want to follow along, is in the larger red books under your seats in the Eitz Chaim Chumash. The reading begins on page 663. That's chapter 14, verse 33. Again, page 663, verse 33. So we have 5 aliyot, just to run them down. So we're going to have the lovely, amazing people who led the Tish this morning are going to have aliyah 1. For aliyah 2, we reserve that for anybody celebrating a simcha. So that could be a birthday, it could be an anniversary, it could be something less exciting but still sort of exciting that you want to celebrate. Aliyah 3 we have for a wonderful guest. Aliyah 4 is what we have for our folks who are observing a yahrzeit. And then we have Aliyah 5 for our birthday girl. Where did she go? She's around somewhere. There she is. Okay, Diana. Okay, great. So page 663, verse 33. You want to call them up? Yeah. Okay.
ויעזוב ויגן ויושיע לכל חוסים בו ונאמר אמן. הכל המוגדל לאלוהינו תנו כבוד לתורה. נא לעמוד לעלייה הראשונה. ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם חיים כוכב היום. Carol is on the...
We have Ruth here, and then Carol and Jane are online. Perhaps we can find them and spotlight them. We'll give a quick minute to find them. Let's see. Did we see them? I don't know if we saw them. Okay. Maybe they'll, hopefully they'll show up. Okay.
Baruch Adonai HaBorach.
Baruch Adonai HaBorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirvanu la'avodato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Just in time. She's holding him, so can you hold the Torah open? Okay, thank you. Amen. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe v'Aaron lemor, ki tavo el eretz Canaan asher ani noten lachem la'achuzah, natati negat zarat bebeit eretz achuzatchem. ובאשר לו הבית והגיד לכהן לאמור כנגע נראה לי בבית וציווה הכהן ופינו את הבית בטרם יבוא הכהן לראות את הנגע ולא יטמע כל אשר בבית ואחר כן יבוא הכהן לראות את הבית וראה את הנגע, והנה הנגע בקירות הבית, שקרורות ירקרקות או אדם דמות, ומראיהן השפל מן הקיר, ויצא הכהן מן הבית אל פתח הבית, והזכיר את הבית 7 ימים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
אשר
שנתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, נותן התורה.
Amen. Yasher Koach. Thank you for all you do as part of the racial justice group, and Yasher Koach on the Tish this morning, and everything that the group contributes. We really appreciate it, and it signifies the inclusiveness of our community, as well as how much we care about the world at large and the issues that you face and tackle. And Yasher Koach for all of that. Wonderful. I'm glad you made it in time.
Nalamol Aliyah Hashniya. Anyone want to celebrate a simcha today?
Is there anyone online who wants to
We have
celebrate
someone
something?
coming up.
Great.
A couple of people.
Yay. It's my in-laws' anniversary. My in-laws, the other Lisa Arbisser. Yes.
Is someone online too?
Is anyone online having something to celebrate? Okay. Baruch Adonai Havarach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher karvanu lavodato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen.
Barbara, can you hold this open? Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Page 664, verse 39. Oh, can you hear me? Verse 39.
Amen. V'shav haKohen bayom hashvi'i v'ra'a v'hinei pasa hanega bekirot habayit v'tziva haKohen v'chilitzu et ha'avanim asher bahen hanaga v'hishlichu eten el michutz la'ir el makom tamei ואת הבית יקציע מבית סביב, ושפכו את העפר אשר הקצו אל מחוץ לעיר אל מקום טמא. ולקחו אבנים אחרות והביאו אל תחת אבנים, ועפר אחר ייקח ותחת הבית.
Asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betokenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. I'm so glad you joined me up here so we can hear what you're celebrating and recognize.
So Izzy, my daughter,
In the mic.
Here, come into the mic so everyone can hear.
Izzy, my daughter, has been part of a Jewish feminist fellowship called Kol Kolenu for 2 years, and it has only met online, even though it wasn't supposed to. And now they are at an in-person retreat in Wisconsin, and she's meeting all these people for the first time. So it is really wonderful. So I'm just thrilled about that.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
That's great.
And it's Allie's 16th birthday. I cannot go,
16.
and she is the love of my life and keeps me alive.
Amazing. Well, may we be blessed on your behalf, and you be blessed on our behalf. Mishaberach, Avotin Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yimotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless both all of you who have risen today on behalf of your daughter and her ability to be together with her cohort, and for Ali, who brings so much joy to Evie and to the rest of us. May you all be surrounded by love and by nourishing community and learning, and so much love and support and cuddles for both of you and me. And may we all be blessed on your behalf. And let us say, Amen. La 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 you.
Nalamo Aliyah HaShlishi, Elala for the third Aliyah.
So we're inviting up Elena Yevsaev? Rudner Yevsaev. Oh, Rudner Yevsaev. This is Rivka's daughter who's here, part of our community. We'll hear a little bit more from her later.
We're on verse 43, page 665.
This is the... Okay. No, I'll do the reconstruction. What did they do up to now? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I grew up here. So from here I start? Okay. Baruch atah Adonai, et Adonai hamavrach. Baruch Adonai hamavrach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah hamavrach Baruch Adonai hamavrach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher קרבנו באבותו ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Do you mind holding this open? Sure. Thank you. אמן. ואם ישוב הנגע ופרח בבית, אחר חילץ את האבנים, ואחרי הקצות את הבית, ואחרי היטוח. ובא הכהן, וראה והנה, פסע הנגע בבית, צרת ממרת היא בבית, טמא הוא. ונתץ את הבית, את האבנים ואת עצה ואת כל עפר הבית, והוציא אל מחוץ לעיר אל מקום טמא, והבא אל הבית כל ימי הזכיר אותו. יטמע עד הערב, והשוכב בבית יכבס את בגדיו, והאוכל בבית יכבס את בגדיו. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. Amen. So glad you could be with us. Thank you so much for having me. We take a moment when the Sefer Torah is out with us to offer blessings of healing. So after I read the congregational list of names, I invite you to stand at your seat if you're able and share a name out loud, or you can raise your hand so we can acknowledge everyone who we're thinking of. Please grant a full healing to the following people: Esther Aviva Bat Sarah Adel, Avraham Michael Ben Shira Yafe Yosef, Larry Josephson, Paul Rosenblum, Zelda Bat Deborah Israel, Mort Gerberg, Chava Bat Moshe, Paul Lindenbaum, Phyllis Kreutner, Eva Reisman, Kayla Bat Sarah, Amy Mandelker, Margot Hellman, Florence Cohn, Tehila Bat Bella, Florence Rosenthal, Ruth Goldenstone, Kate Frici, Jill Prosky, Shalom Hellman, Alan Gard, Yaakov Ben Ladi, Reyes Ben Sarah, Chava Bat Chaya, George Freiga, Jennifer Novak, Shimon Ben Zvi Esther, Hanan Lev Ben Leah, Abigail Fader Kane, Hagen Gottfried, Joseph Gottfried, Heidi Gottfried, Nanette Gottfried, and Jesse Gottfried, Sonali Roy Chaudhary, Ari Vogel, Al Seidenberg, Tybal Ruchel Bat Hashka Avraham, Sarah Bat Leah Golda, and Devorah Bat Chava Ignatz. If there are other names, you can rise at your seat right now. And, sorry, I just want to also encourage folks at home, if you're thinking of anyone, to please add the name in the chat Yes, Christine. Karen. As we hold those all named and written in the chat and those unnamed, may they be granted a full and complete healing in body, mind, or spirit. And if healing is impossible, may they find comfort among those around them. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Aliyah 4.
Those observing a yard site, if anyone is observing a yard site today or in the coming week, please join for this fourth Aliyah. Na la'amod li'aliyah ha'revi'it. Continuing the reading, verse 48, page 665.
And we have some folks at home as well. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Baruch Adonai Habarach.
Baruch Adonai habarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Habarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirvanu levodato v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Rimbo yavo. Hakohen. Rabbeinu. Lo fasad neged babayit. Acharei tachet habayit. V'tihar hakohenet. Habayit ki nirpal hanaga. ולקח לחטא את הבית שתי ציפורים, ועץ ארז ושנית תולעת ואזוב. ושיחת את הציפור האחת אל כלי חרס על מים חיים. ולקח את עץ הארז ואת האזוב ואת שני התולעת ואת הציפור החיה וטבל אותם בדם הציפור השחוטה ובמים החיים. והיזהר הבית 7 פעמים.
Adonai.
Haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'ha'olam natan v'tohenu baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Before I chant the El Malay memorial prayer, I invite all those of you who have risen for an Aliyah in the memory of someone, in honor of their yard site. I invite you to please share the name and relationship of that person. And we'll call on you one at a time. Marilyn. And into the mic, please.
My brother, Michael Barkovquick.
Yes.
My wife, Leona Brochin.
My mother, Leona Brochin.
Effie.
My mother, Genya Cohn Litwak.
Alan.
My father, David Altshuler.
Laura?
My maternal grandmother, Sue Cohen.
And Caitlin?
My best friend, Logan Cummings.
So we hold on to their memories as I chant the El Maleh Memorial Prayer. El Maleh Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamsei Menocha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina B'malot Kiddushim U'Tehorim Kezohar Rakiyam Hasirim Lenishmot Yakirinu Kedoshenu Shelchu Leolamam Ana Bal Harachamim Hastirem B'tzor Kanafecha Leolamim Utzror B'tzror HaChayim Nishmatam Adonai Hu Nachlatam V'yanuchu V'shalom U'mishkavam V'nomar Amen.
נא לעמוד למפטירה, לעלייה החמישית, continuing on verse 52, page 666. Top of the page.
Baruch Ato Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach.
Ach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Ato Adonai. Baruch Adonai Hamvorah. Baruch Ato Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Kivanu L'Avot Ato Shnatan Nonu Et Torato. Baruch Ato Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Diana, can you hold this for me? Amen. V'chitei et habayit b'dam hatzipor u'b'mayim hachayim u'b'tzipor hachaya u'v'etz ha'erez u'v'ayzov u'v'shni hatolat v'shilach et hatzipor hachaya אל מחוץ לעיר על פני השדה, וכיפר על הבית וטהר. זאת התורה לכל נגע הצרת ולנתק, ולצרת הבגד ולבית, ולשאת ולספחת ולבהרת, להורות ביום הטמא וביום הטהור, זאת תורת הצרת.
Baruch Ato Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'Chayei Olam Natan B'Tachenu Baruch Ato Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. So I'm going to save the blessing for after you do the special Haftarah in honor of your 80th birthday. We recognized it last week, but this is very important to Diana to chant Haftarah, and you'll say a little bit about it before she does it. So that concludes the Torah reading.
Nā la'amod l'hagba'ah v'liglila. Please rise for the raising and binding of the Torah scroll.
Bezot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai Beyad Moshe Ay la 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 ay la 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 ay la 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 ay la 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 ay la 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 ay la 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 Please be seated. Just want to say the Haftarah today is for Shabbat HaGadol, as we mentioned before. It's on page 1297, if you want to follow along, still in the larger red books. Again, page 1297. And Diana, just want to share a few things, right?
Right. Okay.
Let me make sure we have enough mics on you, so I'm going to put,
Okay.
Is that okay here?
All right.
There we go. And we'll have that.
Okay. Just a word or two about the book of Malachi, just a little bit, which was not all that familiar to me until I started to study, to learn it.
Yep, I'm working on it. Working on it. This is why.
Okay. Malachi himself is not necessarily, the name Malachi really is understood to mean a messenger. It's not an individual person. But whoever wrote this prophecy, which is the last of the entire Tanakh, which is very significant, wrote it in the year approximately the mid-5th pre-Christian century, at the time, 400 and something, during the time when the majority of the Israelites had returned from Babylonia to Jerusalem. So the community was in Jerusalem. According to Malachi and his contemporaries Ezra and Nehemiah, they weren't doing too well in terms of their observance, and the book itself castigates the population for not following the laws, for being disobedient, for laxity within the temple itself, for lack of support of the temple. And there comes a point during the last few verses that I'm going to read where, through Malachi, God tells the people he's kept a book of remembrance, very reminiscent of what was going on with Esther just a generation or two ago. And, but also, people need to get their act together because the great day is going to come, brought along by Elijah, the prophet. This is the first time that we hear about Elijah playing this role. It is said that he was available to do that because he went up to heaven in a fiery chariot, but we don't know where he became after that. So the connection between Shabbat HaGadol, which always precedes Pesach, has both the concept of the great day of judgment, of redemption, of salvation, which we enact through during the Seder, through the story of the Exodus. And the uptake of that is that there will be a day when history unfolds, when, according to Malachi, we will have returned to the teachings of Moses and we will be redeemed. Okay, that's the connection, both the idea of Pesach being a presage of redemption and Elijah, the presence of Elijah, that is so important during the Seder service as well. There are various comments on the import, again, of Malachi at this time. Maimonides felt that the end of days and the coming of a great time when the lamb shall lie down with the lion, he took that to mean not literally, but that nations will be at peace with each other. That really is the import of what's going to happen when we are redeemed. The the great my landsman, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, spoke about the fact that Malachi teaches us that we have to be a light unto the nations, and that this is also the import of Malachi. One last point that I don't know if anybody remember, when Rabbi Miller was here, he taught a class on Ulysses, and this was actually my introduction to Malachi, that on the first page of the great novel Ulysses, Buck Mulligan, whose real name is Malachi, is enacting a parody of a sacrament. And Rabbi Miller was interested in the continuity of the Hebrew text, just as it is when we go through the Torah and we start reading again, and what the import of Malachi was to the world, since it was the last book of the Tanakh. Okay, so here we go. By the way, okay, I just wanted to say one thing myself, which I think I said last week when I had, it was the birthday good wishes from here. It's important to me as well, I'm afraid. For me, Shabbat HaGadol is the great Sabbath because it precedes Pesach, and that's the day I was born, on the first day of Pesach, 1942, since you were, and I wasn't aware of it at the time. My mother had gone to, I was due the day before. It was, our family had been evacuated outside London, very close to where the air bases were. The Americans were in the war for the first time, this is 1942, after Pearl Harbor in 41. And my mother came home just to make a Seder for some American servicemen to come. And of course, I wasn't aware of it at the time. I do remember being carried around on the shoulders of soldiers. But I did want to say that this has been very much on my mind recently, and that's why I'm saying it, that we're living in a time, obviously, that we're all aware of when it's happening again, where there are, unpleasant things going on, and that for me and my family, the presence of American troops was actually a lifesaver, and I have always appreciated that. So I'm sorry I didn't mean to go on so long. But, oh, yes. I'm going to recite the blessings before and after in full, I hope. You'll be familiar basically with the melody, but it does have somewhat of a variation, and that's what I was used to when I grew up in London, and I think you'll see it. If you have an opportunity to join in, I would appreciate it. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bocha b'neviyim tovim v'raseh b'divreihem v'hanamarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai aboher b'Torah u'v'Moshe avdo u'b'Yisrael amo u'v'nbi'ei hemet b'tzedek. Haziku alai divreihem ama Adonai amratem ma nidbanu alecha amratem shav avod Elohim uma beitza ki shomarnu mishmato v'chi halachnu gadoranit mibnei Adonai Tzevaot. Va'ata anachnu me'ashrim zaydim umidbanu osei risha. Gam bachanu Elohim v'yilmalei tuv. Az nitbaru v'yirei Adonai ish el re'ehu v'yakshev Adonai v'yashma'u v'yikatev sefer zikaron lefanav l'yirei Adonai u'shavei shemo v'hayu li ama Adonai tzavaot layam asher ani osei segula v'hamaliti Elohim ka'asher yachmol ish al bano ha'avod oto ושבתם וריתם בין צדיק לרשע, בין עבוד אלוהים לאשר לא עבודו. כי הנה היום בא בוער קטנו, והיו חלזדים וחלוצי רשעה קש, וליהט אותם היום הבא. אמר אדוני צבאות אשר לא יעשוב לכם שרש וענף, וזרחה לכם ירא שמי שמש צדקה, ומרפא בכנפיך. יצאתם ופשטם בעגלי מרבק, ועשותם רשעים כי יהיו אפר תחת כפות רגליהם. ביום אשר אני עושה אמר אדוני צבאות. זכרו תורת משה עבדי אשר ציוויתי אותו וקרב על כל ישראל חוקים ומשפטים. הנה אני שולח לכם את אליה הנביא לפני בוא יום אדוני הגדול והנורא. והשיב לב אבות על בנים וליב בנים על אבותם, פן אבות ויכתי את הארץ הרם. הנה אנוכי שולח לכם את אליה הנביא לפני בוא יום אדוני הגדול והנורא. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, זו כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדברות, האל הנאמן, האמר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דברך אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא, אדוני אלוהינו, ונמחנו דבריך, ודבר אחד מדבריך, אחד לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני. האל הנאמן בכל דבריו, רחם על ציון, כי היא בית חיינו, ולעלובת נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו, ברוך אתה אדוני. משמח ציון בבניך, שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך, במהרה אבוד ויגל ליבנו, על כיסאו לא ישב זר, ולא יכלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו, שלא יקנו נורא לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני. מגן דוד, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת Hazeh Shanotata Lanu Adonai Eloheinu Likdusha Williminhu Ha Likavod Ulafitaret Al Hakol Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Madimlo Umbrahim Ata Yit Bara Shemafa Befikal Hai Tamid Yalam Vaed Baruch Ato Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Well, I had the help of my father's talit, which is which is very, very old, and which I've worn for the first time ever.
So I want to offer you just a special blessing on behalf not just of your birthday and celebrating this amazing accomplishment, which you didn't know how to do several months ago. It was really important to you that you take up this Haftarah in celebration of a very special birthday, and to do this in community with us. And I know it was not easy, and there were times when it was harder than others, but it's really just so inspiring to watch you go through this journey, and also for us to celebrate with you on your 80th birthday. And so may you be blessed with all of the blessings that you have had so far in your life, with your family, your son and your granddaughter who made it here, with great friends, great community, with engaging learning that I know is so important to you, and so many activities that you're still engaged with. It's been crazy, like trying to schedule stuff with you. You're like, oh, I got this, and I got this. I'm like, you're just amazing. So may you be blessed by all those things, and may you go forward with all of the joy and take that in and keep it with you from today, and go forward and bring all of your teachings out into the world, and may you receive many, many more blessings and joy. And let us say, Amen.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
Congratulations.
And to my son.
So now that you know it, you'll come back next year and do it?
I would actually.
We have just a couple minutes for teaching, not so many. I think you all got a handout, should say Mitzvah on the top.
To leave it. You done? Up to you, I'm in the shower.
Torah 2022 source sheet. So I'm not going to have time to really go through this whole thing, but I encourage you to take it home and in all your free time on Shabbat to take a read through. So at the Reconstructing Judaism conference 2 weeks ago, I took a class, and there was a rabbi who was covering the rabbis who grew up in Ukraine and Poland, really part of the Hasidic tradition. And I was exposed to this book and this rabbi, Meor Einayim, by Rabbi Menachem of Chernobyl. And so while our hearts go out to that part of the world, I know so much Hasidic teaching comes from that area of the world, and so many of those communities are no longer there, but to just honor the connection to that place, and to just honor the teaching that comes from this parsha, from this rabbi on this parsha. Meor Einayim is really a collection of his teachings, of his sermons, of his homilies on most parshiot in the Torah. Not every single one. He didn't do one on Tazria, because I guess there's enough in Metzora for him to cover. And he's really one of the more influential teachers. And just to say a little bit about the Hasidic tradition, Hasidism tradition, and you'll see in his teaching which one of these he really lifts up. So in this community of rabbis and teachers, which started in the early 18th century and really flourished, and later into the 18th century and 19th century, started by the Baal Shem Tov. So these elements of Hasidism we want to just recognize are, and there are 8 of them. So there's the purpose of life is to be in joyous service of the divine, of God, to recognize that the presence of the divine presence is everywhere. We say that the Shekhinah is everywhere. To act with a sense of kavanah, with inner spirituality and intensity. To hold a sense of tzimtzum, that we exist because of God's presence and God's pulling back. Obviously, we include Torah in teaching and studying, tefillah in prayer. Number 7 is the one that I really want to highlight today, which is midot. And I know a number of you have been sort of studying midot and trying to practice midot. It's uplifting, transforming the physical and emotional self to let's see if I can read my writing, to become a more perfect vehicle of God's teaching and of God's presence in the world. And then lastly, to try and be a tzaddik, which is one who sort of encapsulates all of these elements. So just reading the introduction to Metzora written by Arthur Green in his English translation and commentary. He says, Metzora is often the subject of sermons against gossip and other abuses of speech. So that's different from what, if you were following along in the Torah reading, it's all about like looking at physical things, whether it's physical maladies on your body or within your house, talking about mold in the house today, to translate that into how we behave in the world, bringing in the midot about gossip and other abuses of speech. It's connected to the midrashic interpretations based on Miriam's punishment for what she says in Numbers 12. So here the Meyorei Naim delivers that message in classic Hasidic fashion. So rather than berating his hearers, the author reminds them of the divinity of human speech, of the great privilege we have of sharing in the divine love of words and letters. So speech really matters if you speak with praise and with respect and offer teachings, and then how inappropriate it is then to turn such holy vessels toward the course of evil. So I'm just going to sort of skip around. I encourage you to read this. You can try and follow along, but just to highlight some of the points that he makes. So he pulls out the second verse of the Parsha. This shall be the Torah concerning the one struck with skin blanch, that's called Metzora. On the day he becomes clean, he shall be brought to the priest. So our sages interpreted Metzora. So he takes the Hebrew Metzora and sort of splits it up into Motzi Ra, meaning that the afflictions come through the sin of evil speech. And so if you see, I'm just scraping down through here. So it says because, and he makes all these connections to creation, that Israel was created because of God. Israel is something very important and blessed to God. For their sake, all of the world and all of creation was created. And then he goes on to say that he inverts, so, and the Lord God was saddened into his heart and inverts the pleasure. So when one speaks evil, we say that God inverts pleasure, which in Hebrew is oneg. If you look at the Hebrew letters, we have ayin, nun, gimel, and switches them around. So we go from pleasure to affliction, and that is the nega, nun, gimel, ayin. And therefore, this wage is affliction. And so I'm just really worried about time. Okay, so just further down, he notes the creation, the connection between creation and all of the letters in the Torah, and that every letter of the Torah is sacred because every letter of the Torah was used for creation, and so we want to use those letters in the spirit of creation, of creating and bringing life to the world, and we do that through positive speech, and we take away from that. We don't want to use those 22 letters of Torah in evil speech because it speaks against creation and against God's whole sort of MO of creating us. And so I'm going to sort of leave it there, which is it's not a complete teaching, but to just highlight that the rabbis were, even back then, this is 200, 300 years ago, were concerned with looking at what was in the Torah text and really trying to, especially in the Hasidic tradition, of translating it to our lives today. We no longer have the temple. We can't offer sacrifices, and we also have modern medicine that can help us with physical afflictions. But what about the afflictions that are in our souls and in the way we speak? And so it sort of concludes with, when you in the Torah, when you offer, follow all the directions and you become clean, then you can meet with the priest back in the temple, which today we interpret, which is to say, blessed is God, God is the priest. And so you are acting in a godly manner if you can sort of get away from evil speech, or if you do it to pull away from it and not to bring it out into the world. That was my very, very brief teaching from Meor Einayim. There's a really wonderful resource online called Sefaria. So many Jewish texts are on there. I encourage you to look on there. You can read more about Meor Einayim. A ton of other Hasidic rabbis' teachings are on there. The entire Tanakh is on there. There's a lot of Midrash commentary on there as well. So it's a little teaching on Mitzvah for you today. So I want to, before we put the Torah away, I want to read a quick blessing for our country and for Israel. This is an abbreviated one for our country written by Rabbi Ayelet Cohen. May we be strong and have courage, to be bold in our action and deep in our compassion, to discern when we must listen and when we must act, to uproot bigotry, intolerance, misogyny, racism, discrimination, and violence in all its forms, to celebrate the many faces of God reflected in the wondrous diversity of humanity, to welcome the stranger, the immigrant, to honor the gifts of those who seek refuge and possibility here. As they have since this nation was born, let justice well up like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. A prayer for peace in the land of Israel. The last few weeks have seen an uptick in violence, and so our hearts go out to the peoples who dwell there, and may they find wholeness and peace. By Devin Spire. Of the Kotel, Rav Kook writes, there are silent stones, and there are stones which are hearts. But what about the stones in the way of hearts, guarding us with the unmovable hardness that has withstood generations and yet left the silent ones broken? Take us to a place beyond stones and hearts, where the presence of God embracingly dwells, and where neither mineral or human being stands in the way of that which dwells most high. Peace for all of creation. And let us say, Amen. We're going to return the Torah to the Ark. So I invite up our Torah holder and our Ark opener, page 33, and I invite everyone to please rise. Yeah, hallelujah, et Shem Adonai, ki niskav Shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren b'yamo, tehillah page 445, we put the Torah back. Page 441, as we sing Eitz Chaim He in the middle of the Hebrew transliteration. Eitz Chaim He, Lama Chazikim Ba. Remain standing for Aleinu on page 445. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שנתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. Continue on the next page, the final 3 lines in the Hebrew or transliteration. ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו seated. Before we read the list of yahrzeit names and say Kaddish, I want to invite up Ilana one more time to share a few words. Ilana is Rivka's daughter, Rivka Rudner's daughter, to share a few words about her. Rivka passed a couple of months ago, remember? And we're just glad that you're here with us to be together. And it's been a while since Rivka's been in our community, but she was very beloved, and we'd just love to hear what you want to share. Thank you so much.
Hi. Hi. I'm very excited to be here. I'll go back and forth. So I grew up at the SAJ. My brothers grew up here. I had my bat mitzvah here. I walk into, the synagogue looked a little different. I think we would look different. Rabbi Miller was the rabbi here. Cantor Kornreich was my cantor who taught me to sing for my bat mitzvah. So I walk in, I pick up a siddur, and I open up, and I see Mimi and Lieber. I grew up with Angie and Theo and Jan and Jetty. Diana Heller was a close friend of my mother's. Christy was a close friend of my mother's. Ruth Messenger was a close friend and a mentor to my mother, so I feel right at home. I left New York many years ago and moved to Israel. My mother was Israeli. So now I'll talk a bit about my mother, and past and then present. So my mother was born in Palestine, lived as the state was being formed. She was a very big Zionist. She came to this country. Her mother was American and sent her to come to college here after the army. My mother met my father in Connecticut, and they married in Israel and remained in New York. She became a New Yorker, but she was still a very spirited Israeli, pioneer spirit, and she always felt like she wanted to return to Israel. But she was always looking for community. As we were growing up, she wanted to find a community for us, and she found the SAJ. My brothers and I left New York. I went to Israel. My brothers moved on in their careers. And more and more SAJ became a community for my mother. My parents split up when my children were little, and my mother just kept on coming back to the SAJ. She would spend every Saturdays, Fridays, every holidays with us, without us. She had a huge community here. She opened up her house for Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, probably more. She had a bat mitzvah here. She did tishes here. I mean, I wasn't here all the time, but SAJ was her number 2 community in New York. Her number 1 was Hunter College, where she was a professor. Anyway, 7 years ago, we realized my mother needed to live closer to one of her children. It made the most sense that she moved back to Israel, which she had always wanted. She didn't want to leave New York, but she wanted to move. It was quite complicated. But we did move her. She moved back to Israel 7 years ago, and I found an assistant living outside of Tel Aviv, which was amazing for my mother. She missed the SAJ. She never found a synagogue in Israel that she could connect to. She didn't want to sit on the balcony. She wanted this. She wanted an intellectual experience, which she did not find. But she had a community at the assistant living. She had old friends and my family. So she had a great last 7 years of her life. She did develop dementia, but she had amazing care. I was there every week. She had 2 amazing caretakers who, December 25th, she actually went into the hospital, and she was fighting. We thought that she was going to make it through. She had a very strong pioneer spirit. She returned home to her assisted living, and then she died early Christmas morning, December 25th. We had a funeral and a shiva in Israel and a memorial Zoom for her. And then I said, I have to come back to New York because she lived in New York for 60 years. She was Israeli, but she was a New Yorker as well. I found this week right before Pesach and said, I'm here. So yesterday I was at Hunter College honoring her, and today I'm at SAJ honoring her. And I just thought it was so amazing to hear Diana and see Ruth and open up the Siddur and find families that I grew up with. So thank you for having me. I'm sponsoring a Kiddush afterwards. My mother loved to drink wine, no secret. I ordered a lot of wine so we can toast to my mother. And really, even the years when she went back to Israel, she talked about the SAJ. She was in touch with some of her friends. As her dementia proceeded, it was harder and harder. And later on, I would talk to her about SAJ and about all of her friends and all the people that we grew up with, just to get her memory sharpened. In her last years of her life, the part of her brain which was the most in tune was music. We would play music for her all the time. She could still sing, pick up tunes in Hebrew and English. It was quite amazing, even as her language was going. Till the end in the hospital, we were singing with music in the background. It was quite amazing how the music part remained with her. Anyway, thank you for having me. Shabbat Shalom, and I'll see you. B'vakasha.
So remember Rivka today, as well as other beloved SAJers and family members. Recognize the yard sites today and in the coming week of Lillian Cohen, Roy Stevens, Dan Isaac, Leona Broshin, Genya Litwak, Michael Glick, David Altschuler, Fanny Hartman, Julian Spitz, Sue Cohen. Mourner's Kaddish is on page 451. If you're observing a yard site in a period of mourning or it's your custom, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalmad yivarach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'yimru, Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yit'alev v'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'ama v'imru Amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru Amen. I invite up Janet for a few announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So terrific to see you all here today. Thank you to Carol Anshine, Ruth Messenger, and Jane Shamanesh, members of the SAJ Racial Justice Study Activism Group. Thank you to Diana Heller for laning and to Barbara Nussbaum for ushering today. Please join us post-Kiddush for board games in the social hall. Tomorrow afternoon, we're hosting Children Helping Children Through Music, benefiting Save the Children's Ukraine Crisis Relief Fund. The Associated Music Teachers League is showcasing its best students with classical music performances. Tickets purchases should be in the link in the chat. Also, I believe in the weekly email. Please note that if you come in person, the organization that is producing this is encouraging all to be vaccinated, but not requiring it. The audience, however, will be required to wear masks. The first Passover Seder, everybody should know, is next Friday night in homes, but Saturday after services, we'll have a kosher for Passover Seder. Monday, beginning Kiddush. Oh, it says Seder. I was wondering about that I didn't know about that. I was wondering about that. Mondays beginning April 18th, Rabbinic intern Noah will be leading Counting the Omer, leading from the Torah of Our Lives. The class will be via Zoom. We hope that you'll join us on Sunday, April 24th, for the Hatan Torah, Hatan Bereshit event. This year we're honoring David Katz and Jordan Friedland. Please join us. It's always a wonderful, wonderful event, and we'll hear their Jewish journey stories and also their many contributions to SAJ. Kiddush is in the social hall. It's sponsored by Elena in memory of Rivka Rudner. Wine is sponsored by Diana Heller in celebration of her birthday. There will be Macomb students joining upstairs for Kiddush, and so we'll have Kiddush and Motzi up there. Please bring your masks, wear your masks while getting food, and then you can take them off while you eat. But there's also grab and go in the lobby if you prefer to do that instead, or grab something on the way up to Kiddush, up to you. We just love to see you afterwards. Shabbat Shalom.
Just a quick thank you to Debbie Rand, who stepped in to Gabbai. Always willing to say yes, and I appreciate that. Just running everything myself. And also, if anyone was wondering, Rabbi Lauren is not here because she is leading a trip of 16 SAJ teens to Montgomery and Selma, Alabama this weekend, including my own 14-year-old. It's very exciting, and Sam as well, on a trip to learn about the history of civil rights and the history of racism in our country. And hopefully in about a month or so, they will put together a little drash, a little teaching about their trip, and we'll get to hear about it. And I hope they come away with maybe a couple more friends too, would be nice. We're going to conclude with Adon Olam. It's on page 459. I'm not sure if we have the sheet music. We started putting sheet music up. We do. Yay! Can you make it a little bigger? can see it, not sure. So melody was requested by Diana. This is written by D.A. de Sola from the Spanish-Portuguese tradition that she grew up with in London. There's a huge Spanish-Portuguese contingency that moved over to London. So either sing along or just listen, and if you can read that, and then Shabbat Shalom, page 459. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'Terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Le'ed Nasa V'Chefzo Kol Shemo Nikra Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Shabbat Shalom. Wonderful to see everyone. See you upstairs at Kiddush. Shabbat Shalom, everyone at home, if you want to unmute and say hello too.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom,